In the heart of northern India lies the Chambal, a land carved by wind and water into a labyrinth of ravines. Deep gullies the locals call behads. These ravines stretch across the borders of Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Uttar Pradesh, a country within a country, where the law of the state has often struggled to reach. For generations, the Chambal was home not only to farmers and herdsmen, but also to bandits, men who took the gun when land, honor, or survival left them with few other choices. It was here, in the dusty hamlets of Gohad Tahsil near Gwalior, that Gabbar Singh Gurjar was born. The exact year is debated. Some police records list 1926, others 1928. Oral traditions place it in the early 1930s. His community, the Gurjars, were cattle herders and small farmers, spread across dozens of villages in the Chambal Valley. Police gazetteers of the period often describe Gurjar and Lodi settlements as prone to cattle theft, land feuds, and harboring of armed elements. The Gurjar hamlets of Bandit and Morena districts present a perennial problem. Clashes over grazing land escalate quickly into armed skirmishes. Young men carry country-made firearms as naturally as others carry plows. Gabbar grew up in this atmosphere of constant tension. Villagers later recalled him as a wiry boy, restless and headstrong. He was not content to plow his father's fields or tend buffaloes. In the words of an elderly resident of Gohad, interviewed decades later, Gabbar had fire in his eyes. He wanted to be more than a farmer. He wanted to be feared. To understand Gabbar's world, one must picture the landscape itself. The Chambal River winds like a silver thread through sandstone ridges, cutting into the earth to form canyons that drop 30, 40, sometimes 60 feet deep. Entire villages disappear behind ridgelines. Police patrols, often on foot or horseback, could vanish into a maze of gullies within minutes. The ravines offered not only concealment, but strategy. A dacoit gang could fire from one ridge, retreat into a gully, and emerge 2 miles away, invisible pursuers. Oral ballads often call the ravines Ma Ki God, the mother's lap, for the bandit who sought refuge there. Gabbar grew up playing in these ravines, learning their turns and shortcuts the way city boys might learn alleyways. By his teenage years, he knew where pursuers' horse would stumble, where water would collect after monsoon, where one could disappear if chased. The 1930s and 40s were turbulent decades in Gwalior state. Population pressures strained farmland. The Gurjars, traditionally herders, were in competition with Lodis and Jats for grazing land. The police archives of 1937 note repeated clashes. A quarrel over cattle grazing between Gurjar youths of village Bankara and Lodis of Kaliampur led to 2 deaths and the burning of 7 huts. Both parties refused compromise. In this world, reputation mattered as much as property. To be insulted publicly, to lose cattle to a rival, to have a sister harassed, these could not be borne. Retaliation was expected. Families kept country-made muskets, often passed down generations. Boys were taught to shoot before they learned to read. Gabbar was said to be especially quick with the kata, a crude but deadly pistol made in the blacksmith shops of Munger and Etava. An elderly blacksmith recalled, "He came as a boy, asking for iron scrap. By 15, he could load and fire better than most grown men." Though the exact details are blurred by folklore, one of Gabbar's earliest recorded run-ins with authority occurred in the mid-1940s. A police diary from Bandit district mentions a theft case in Gohad involving a youth of the Gurjar caste named Gabbar. It is unclear whether he was formally charged, but the record notes, subject absconded before arrest could be made, suspected hiding in the ravines near Kachpura. This may have been his first taste of the outlaw's life. A few nights in the behads, living off grain stolen from fields, returning under cover of darkness. For a restless teenager, it may also have felt intoxicating. Freedom from the village elders, freedom from plow and cattle, the open ravine as home. Oral histories collected in the 1970s paint Gabbar not as a hardened criminal in these early years, but as a boy who sought escape from the monotony of farming life. A villager from Bandit told the folklorist Gabbar Singh, he was not yet a dacoit. He was just too restless. If another boy boasted, Gabbar would fight him. If someone flaunted wealth, Gabbar would mock him. He could not sit still. These accounts suggest that the seeds of rebellion were sown not by ideology, but by temperament and circumstance. In a land where every family feud could escalate into gunfire, a headstrong youth with a knack for firearms was already halfway to becoming an outlaw. The British and princely police forces of the 1930s and 40s often categorized outlaws as either economic, driven by poverty, or vindictive, driven by revenge. Gabbar Singh, in these early accounts, seems to straddle both. Poverty was real. His family had little land. But more than hunger, it was pride and restlessness that shaped him. In 1942, during the Quit India movement, many youths from Chambal joined protests or used the chaos to settle old scores. Oral memory places Gabbar among those who admired the defiance, even if he did not participate formally. One police officer later remarked in his memoir, "The line between political protester and criminal in Chambal was thin. Today a boy shouted slogans. Tomorrow he raided cattle." Gabbar's early reputation grew in this blur of defiance. By the late 1940s, he was no longer just a restless youth. His name began appearing in the margins of police reports, alongside thefts, quarrels, and abscondings. Thus, by the end of the 1940s, the outline of Gabbar Singh Gurjar had begun to emerge. Not yet the feared dacoit of legend, but no longer the anonymous son of a farmer either. The Chambal Ravines acclaimed him, as they had claimed so many before. The late 1940s and early 1950s brought seismic shifts across India. Independence in 1947 redrew maps, toppled princely states, and placed vast regions under the administration of the new republic. But for remote corners like the Chambal Ravines, change was less immediate. Here, law remained fragile, poverty deep, and honor still measured in the barrel of a gun. It was in this unsettled atmosphere that Gabbar Singh Gurjar made his decisive transition from quarrelsome youth to outlaw. What began as petty thefts and scuffles hardened into something more enduring, the nucleus of a gang. Oral testimonies suggest that Gabbar's first companions were young men from neighboring Gurjar hamlets, Bungshi, Kalu, and Ram Prasad. Police notes often lumped them together, describing them simply as Gabbar and Associates. One retired constable, interviewed in 1975, recalled, "They were village boys, not professional criminals at first, but they shared a hunger for respect, for fear. They did not want to bow before the zamindars or the police." The gang began small. A nighttime cattle theft here, a raid on a grain store there. Villagers would wait to find their fodder stacks missing or their bullocks untethered. These acts were both survival and statement. In villages where wealth meant control, striking at livestock was striking at status.